As crazy as it sounds, it's the regular season finale, and it's time for Indiana football to beat Purdue.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Hope you all had a fantastic Thanksgiving, a great holiday. Travel plans on my end got messed up just a little bit, so apologies for the delay in some of these videos and reactions and things, but we got one for you over the weekend. Going to try and make up for that. We've got so much to get to on the show today. Indiana basketball, yikes. That's what I can say about their performance in the battle for Atlantis. Plus, we've got playoff implications all over the place on a Rivalry Saturday. And it starts with your Indiana Hoosiers and the Purdue Boilermakers, the 99th edition of this game. And think about this, the first time it's ever been played at night. Yeah, isn't that crazy to think about? In 98 times, it's never been played under the lights. And we get to have that at Memorial Stadium between Indiana and Purdue. And you talk about two teams that are just completely opposite. I mean, completely opposite. Literally 10-1 versus 1-10. And this might just be the most lopsided I've ever seen in this rivalry. I mean, there are times where both teams have not been great, right? We've seen a lot of those games, but the games end up being pretty good. This one, I don't know. It's flirting with getting really ugly really quickly, especially with it being in Bloomington at night. It's going to be cold. They're calling for snow flurries. I mean, we have everything to play for. They have literally nothing to play for. And I hate that, but not for them because it's Purdue and we don't like them. So you start looking around, right? You look at what all the betting lines are saying. This thing has already moved even since it opened up. I'm looking at 29 points as a favorite for Indiana, according to our friends at FanDuel, which is insane to think about in a rivalry game. But, man, Purdue's just so bad. They're so bad. If they lose today, they don't have a single conference win. They also lost to Notre Dame in the beginning of the year. They lost to Oregon State in the beginning of the year. Their only win was in week 1 against Indiana State, 49-0. And what's crazy is they don't really do anything well. They don't play defense very well, right? They gave up 66, 38, 28, 52, 50, 35, 45, 49. Like, they've given up a lot of points. And they also just don't score a whole lot either. They don't score a whole lot of points here, right? 17, 10, 0, 20, 0. They did score 49 in that game against Illinois, but even that wasn't good enough. 6, 10, 21, and 7. So if you're Indiana, man, look, I could do a big, deep dive into this Purdue team and tell you who's good, who's not, and what you need to do. But, man, do we really want to? Do we really care about Purdue? We know they're a bad team. And this is about Indiana, right? This is about the Hoosiers, who are trying to bounce back, who are trying to respond to what happened in our last game against Ohio State. Look, we have something to prove now. We have something to prove to ourselves, to the state of Indiana, to the Big Ten, and to the College Football Playoff Committee, and to the country, because the last time they saw us in action was a loss to Ohio State in Columbus, where it was a top 5 matchup. That's the last time we were seen on the field. And so we have to find a way to put that behind us, not worry about that, and realize we still have everything to play for. We still have this rivalry to play for. We still have the greatest regular season of all time for us to complete. And we still have playoff implications. Nothing has told me that we're not going to make it into the playoffs. So we're going to talk about that coming up in just a minute, about this game, the Big Ten, and around college football, because there's a lot happening on this Rivalry Saturday. But in terms of Indiana, you feel good going into this game. Again, you're a 29-point favorite. I don't expect Kurtis Rourke to let his team play like that. I don't expect him to allow them to think that way. We've seen too much from him for that to happen. But here's the bottom line. You have to treat this like it's your national championship game. You have to treat this game like you have every other game, if not bigger than every other game if you're Indiana, because if you lose, you're out. We're done if we lose to the Boilermakers. And while they're a terrible team, all right, they're a really, really bad team, they still have some talent. They still have some dudes on that side. And they would love nothing more than during one of their worst seasons in history to come into our house at night and destroy this historical record season that we have going on. Because that's exactly what they can do. They can come in and end our season tonight on our home field. That would suck. That would be terrible. That would be depressing to not only lose it in their last game of the season, but to lose it to Purdue, right? You see what I'm saying here? So while the records don't match and everybody's calling for this to be a blowout, and most people probably aren't even going to watch this game, that's fine. That means we just have to take care of business. Give them a reason not to watch this game tonight. We don't need this thing being close in the second half. We don't need this thing being close in the fourth quarter. How do you do that, you ask? Well, you've watched the games like I have. It's pretty simple. I think it starts with the ground game, starts with the dudes up front, win the line of scrimmage. We're going to dominate that. If we play well today and we play up to our expectation, we should dominate the offensive and defensive lines. We got bullied a little bit a week ago against Ohio State. Time to respond this week against Purdue. You start with the run game, Son Lawton, Justice Ellison. You get those guys going. And look, I don't think Purdue can stop them consistently. I really, really don't. I don't think they've got the Jimmys and Joes to stop us up front time and time again. Then when they pack the box and they try to stop our run game, that's when you let Kurtis Rourke do his thing. He needs a good bounce back game, another confidence rebooster, if you will, after the game a week ago against the Buckeyes. Let it fly, man. Find your dudes on the outside. You've got about 5 of them now that Indiana has established. If you do those things, Indiana's going to run away with this thing. And I think you should also hopefully get to the point where fourth quarter rolls around. If we are up big, take our guys out. Let's stay healthy. Let's prepare for what's coming ahead. And so, can Indiana beat Purdue? Absolutely. Should Indiana beat Purdue? Absolutely. But you have to treat it like it's a Super Bowl. You have to treat this like it's the most important game, because it is. With all the implications on the line in Bloomington and around the country, you cannot slip up here if you are Indiana. So, are there playoff implications on the line? Absolutely. Not just in Bloomington, though, around the Big Ten and around the country. We're talking about that next right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Mint Mobile. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through a bed of hot coals just to save a few bucks. It's got to be easy. No hoops, no BS. So, when Mint Mobile said it was easy to get a wireless plan for $15 a month with the purchase of a 3-month plan, I called them out on it. I didn't believe it. I said, no, there's no shot. And it turns out it really was that easy to get a wireless plan for $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my old provider to tell them goodbye. To get started, go with mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. There you'll see that right now. All 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including an unlimited plan. All plans come with a high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Find how easy it is to switch to Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower, above 40 gigabytes of unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much for being here. Again, hope you had a fantastic holiday. Glad to be back here on the show. We'll have full rotation of shows starting up again for you next week. If you're new here, just now discovering us, if you're on YouTube, be sure that you like this video, comment down below, and that you subscribe to the channel. And for those of you, if you're finding us on your audio podcasting platforms of Spotify, Amazon, Apple, you name it, we're there. Be sure that you are following us on there and have those notifications turned on so you never miss a new episode of Locked On Hoosiers. A free daily podcast 5 days a week for you in your inbox. So be sure that you have all that set up as well. Well, there's a lot of playoff implications on the line on a Rivalry Saturday. Man, it's the best day in college football all season long. You've got big games in the Big Ten, big games around the country. And look, there's a lot happening on this Saturday. You had a lot happen on Friday, right? How about the Georgia Tech game that went to 8 overtimes, where Georgia was trying to get into the playoff with that game? You had Boise State take care of business, Colorado take care of business. I mean, there's a lot happening, and that's about to be double, triple, quadruple down on this Saturday. You look around what's happening, and just to start counting games that I think have legitimate playoff implications, and we'll loop this into Indiana and how all this is going to play out, right? You have Auburn, Alabama. You have Tennessee, Vanderbilt. You have South Carolina, Clemson, right? Maryland, Penn State. I don't think if the Nittany Lions lose, I don't think they're out. They should be, but it's fine. Notre Dame, USC is an interesting one. I'm going to count that. I think if Notre Dame loses, they should be out. I don't think others think that way, or most people don't think that way, but I do, so I'm going to count it. How about Miami, Syracuse? That's 6. How about SMU, California? That's 7. That's a conversation about the ACC between 2 and 3 teams getting into the college football playoff. They don't know what the heck's going on over there. And then you've got, how about this? Arizona State and Arizona. Speaking of that, the Big 12 is going insane right now. They've got like 8 teams that have a chance to make it into their conference championship game. Somebody's going to be left out of that conference, and they're not going to be very happy. I'm up to 8 games, by the way. Indiana, Purdue, that's 9. I think Oregon's safe regardless. You have Texas A&M, that's 10. Kansas State, Iowa State, that's 11. I think UNLV and Nevada is 1. That's 12. And BYU Houston is 1. That's 13. 13 games that are happening on Rivalry Saturday that I believe have a legitimate playoff implication attached to it. Think about that. I know we've talked a lot about this playoff system and how I don't like it, but it did its job. It did what they wanted it to do. It has created more drama, more excitement throughout the entire season, rather than us basically knowing what's going to happen next week, even with the results of today. Rather than that being the case like it was a year, in the years past, I just said we have 13 games that you have to keep up with today to figure out what the heck is going to happen in the postseason, with conference championship games, with the playoff, with the automatic bids, with the at-larges, right? All of that is encompassed in one singular day of football, and that's happening today on Rivalry Saturday. And Indiana's all up in it, right? There are teams actively rooting against us today in this game against Purdue, because there's a lot of teams who are trying to slip in, and they could do that with an Indiana loss. Now, I think there are other teams in that category who, if they lose, they're probably done. I think Tennessee's in that category. I think Alabama's in that category. Again, I think Notre Dame should be in that category, but unfortunately, they're probably not. I think Texas A&M is in that category, which they're not in it, but they're trying to be. They could get to the SEC championship game. You're looking at all those teams from the Big 12, right? Iowa State, Kansas State. While they're not in, they're still trying to get to the Big 12 championship game to have a chance to get in. Miami's an interesting story. Penn State's an interesting story. Clemson, South Carolina's an interesting story, right? There's so many games and teams that are trying to fight their way in, or at least give themselves one more chance to get in. And then it would all be helped by a win from Purdue over Indiana. So we've got to handle our business today and just not even let this thing become a possibility. If we win, I think they've told us. I think they've told us we're in. And so if we do what we need to do, I think we're going to be okay. And it would just be, it would be so disheartening. It would be so disheartening if after this great season, one of the best we've ever seen, the best we've ever seen in the history of Indiana football if it came to an end in Bloomington against Purdue. Again, I don't think that happens. And then you start looking at, okay, well, there's a bunch of conference championship games next weekend. Indiana's not going to be a part of that, which in this scenario, I think we're okay with. I think we're fine. I don't like it. I don't like that that's the case. I do for us, but in terms of college football, I don't like that you almost are rewarded for not playing in your championship game. That's not how that was supposed to go. But here we are, and that's kind of what's happening here. And so with all of that, I just think that there needs to be some changes. I think automatic bids are going to go away. I really do. I think automatic bids will eventually be waxed because you're talking about teams that could get in that, yes, they're deserving, but then other deserving teams may be left out because somebody got hot at the end. And again, you're still having teams like Indiana and Penn State who are going to get to the playoff and not even play in the championship game. How about Notre Dame, right? Notre Dame is a team that will never play a championship game because nobody makes them play by the same rules as everybody else, and they somehow still get away with it. Now, they'll never have an automatic bid. Fine by them. They'll just host a game every year. They're cool with that. They'll host a game in South Bend for the first round of the playoffs every year, and they won't bat an eye. They won't complain a single bit. So, I don't know, man. Going to be a lot of fun, though. Keep your eye out on all of those games that I mentioned, 13 of them that have a legitimate college football playoff implications happening today. Indiana and Purdue is one of them. I think Purdue does not get it done. I think Indiana rolls here. I think we win big. Do we cover a 29-point spread? I don't know. That seems like a lot, but I think Indiana wins this thing going away. And while there's good news on the football side, first time we talk about basketball since the Atlantis trip happened. My goodness, Indiana basketball. I don't know what that was, but I'm going to try and put my thoughts together here. I've had a few days to think about it. What a disaster it was in the battle for Atlantis for head coach Mike Woodson and this Indiana men's basketball team. We're talking about that coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Look, you've got Rivalry Saturday, you've got the NFL, college basketball's off and running, so there's no reason for you not to be on FanDuel. Just go to FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you again for being here. Shout out to all my everydayers and also to all of you newbies that are just here. Whether it's your first, second, third, fifth, 10th time, doesn't matter to me. Really appreciate you all being here again. This is a daily Monday through Friday podcast. This last week was a little crazy with the holiday, but back to normal on Monday. 5 days a week, free to you, video on YouTube or audio wherever you get your podcast. And do we have to talk basketball? Do we have to talk it? Yeah, we do. We got to have a conversation because, oh my goodness, I had a video, an episode that went out that talked about the confidence that I had in this Indiana team, this Indiana men's basketball team, to go down and win the battle for Atlantis. I did a whole thing on how we could do it, how we could make it happen, how we could beat Louisville in the opener, then beat Gonzaga, maybe beat Arizona, have a great resume, feel good about ourselves, coming out of the battle for Atlantis and coming home to take our final few non-conference games before the Big Ten slate. That didn't happen. Not even close. Indiana goes 1-2 in Atlantis. They get embarrassed by Louisville on day one, blown out by Gonzaga on day two, and somehow pulled themselves together to beat Providence on day three. I saw a lot of people describe it this way, and I'm going to jump on this train. That game against Louisville in the opener may have been the most embarrassing game I've ever seen Indiana play. I'm not kidding. It may have been the worst game I've ever seen Indiana basketball play in my entire life. It was horrific. And I just don't understand. I don't understand how you have so much time, so much preparation, so much. It's just, you have so long to get ready for this game. The first game of the tournament. Gonzaga, sure, I get it, right? You're trying to do a little bit of prep for all the teams in case you see them. But, man, this was a guaranteed game. You've known about Louisville for months now. And that's how you perform. That's how you show up in the first game of a tournament on national TV. It was embarrassing to watch. And you could tell that Mike Woodson was embarrassed, and he should be. I hope everybody at Indiana, at IU, was embarrassed. And I hope that they let him know about it, because that's unacceptable. That's not a good Louisville team. They're not. They're okay. They're decent at best. But that's not a good Louisville team. And they made the 14th ranked team in the country, air quotes for those of you listening on audio. They made the 14th ranked team in the country look like they had never touched a basketball before. Looked like they had never even stepped on the basketball floor ever in their lives. Embarrassing performance, 89-61, down by nearly 40 at one point in this game. Are you kidding me? I mean, just lazy, no effort, no passion, no care, couldn't shoot, couldn't score, couldn't defend, and I just don't think we wanted to. I don't think we wanted to at all. Then you turn around the next day and you play Gonzaga, right? You lose that one 89-73. That's because you go down by 20 in the first half. You played better, I guess, better. And I was hoping we got to play Gonzaga. Crazy that we played them in the losers bracket. Didn't expect that to happen, but there you go. We got Gonzaga like we wanted, and I don't think we wanted them because they wanted everything we brought to them. And again, it was a little bit better, but God, the defense was so lazy. I mean, just so unenergetic and just like, just letting them go by, throwing arms, not even moving your feet, just flat-footed, watching the ball go by, watching the ball go in, and just, I don't know, man. I mean, this was bad. This was really, really bad. And when you've got guys like Miles Rice, Canton Carlisle, Malik Renew, who only go for 6 apiece, Umar Ballo had a great game against Gonzaga. 25 points, had a great game. 11 of 13 from the floor. That's exactly what you needed. You just couldn't get it from anywhere else. And your guys off the bench are not producing. Luke Goody's been a huge disappointment so far. Can I just say that? He's been a huge disappointment for most of this young season, and you get embarrassed by Gonzaga. Now, I was impressed. I do have to say, I was impressed by how we bounced back against Providence. 89-73, up by 10 at the half. You were able to finish this game out. I was more impressed with our effort here. Sure, it was against a worse team, but it is what it is. You still perform at a somewhat high level. You put up 89, you only give up 73, and the starting lineup changed a little bit here too, right? Galloway got the start, and until Canton Carlisle gets it figured out, whether he's injured, whether he's just got some stuff going on, I don't know. Put Galloway in the starting lineup. I mean, he's got to be the energy for this team because it's not coming from Miles Rice. It's not coming from Malik Renew, who still can't figure out how to defend without fouling. Don't know what the heck that problem is. He still can't figure it out. And Mike Woodson was like, oh, yeah, we're going to play him through fouls. Okay, good one, Woody. That's a great idea. You had Mbako go for 25. You had Renew go for 21, looking really good. And you had Galloway with his best game of this young season with 18 points on 7 of 12 shooting against Providence. Looked a lot better in this game. And if there's anything good to take away, it's that performance. But I just can't get over the fact of the matter that, man, we look so bad against Louisville and Gonzaga. So bad. And I'm afraid that we're going to have those types of games all season long in the Big Ten, which means we're going to get blown out in the Big Ten. We are going to get embarrassed, destroyed in this conference if we don't figure it out. And I'm telling you what, fans are losing faith in Mike Woodson by the day. By the day. The ones most people already have. Most people have already checked out on him, right? But the ones that were hanging around, the ones that were still backing him, this was not a good showing for Mike Woodson and those fans. They have almost fully given up on him. You better figure it out, man. He says, oh, yeah, we got to get him to play harder, and I got to pressure him more, and I got to do better. How much have we heard that? How many times have we heard the same thing over and over and over again from Mike Woodson as the head coach of this program? I'm tired of hearing the talk. Figure it out or get out. That's what I say to Mike Woodson about this Indiana team. There's too much talent for them not to win this year. There's too much talent for them to get embarrassed on the national stage by a mediocre Louisville team. That cannot happen again. And guess what? It probably will. And if it does, we're going to put them on full blast, because at IU, with this team and this program, I'm sorry, but that's just flat out unacceptable. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much for being here again. I appreciate everybody, whether you're new, whether you're returning, whether you're just passing through. Really do appreciate you. If you're on the video side on YouTube, like this video, comment down below your thoughts on the football game today, your thoughts on basketball. I'm sure you have some. And then be sure that you subscribe to the channel as well. For those of you on audio, follow us, turn on those notifications so you never miss a new episode, okay? Full episode up on Monday. All right, we're back to normal, back to regular schedule on Monday, 5 days a week. So until then, Hoosier fans, stay safe. I'll talk to you later.